Welcome everyone to my SH Figuarts collection video for the Marvel Cinematic Universe line. Today's theme, I will be showing you my collection for the Iron Man Hall of Armours for the movies Iron Man 1 to 3 plus the first Avengers Assemble. And one of the reasons is it is December now, so it's almost Christmas time. One movie I do like to catch each year, it is Iron Man 3. So it kind of reminded me to update everyone on my collection and just go up to the movie Iron Man 3 because he has plenty more armors in the later movies, but I'll save those for future collection videos. Of course, I want to put those armors with the other characters. So today's kind of collection will just be the Iron Man movies 1, 2, 3, and then the first Avengers Assemble, as that one was in between 2 and 3. So I'm going to start off by going through them in the kind of order of the MCU timeline. And I'm going to start off with the Tony Stark figure from the first Iron Man movie. This is part of the Birth of Iron Man series. Of course, this figure was released about 2 years ago now. And it's a really nice figure because the trademark look of Tony Stark was always him in the suit. And he was wearing a suit in all the MCU movies he's appeared in apart from Infinity War. So this figure pretty much works in any of your collections, and you can pair it up with any of your Iron Man armors and it would just work. So yeah, even though it's pretty simple, I just have a Tony Stark figure in a suit, but I think it always works in any of your displays. And what I like about this figure in particular is it's another option to swap out the top half of the body and head for the one with the vest. So it looks like he's building the Mark 1 in the cave. And it's not every day you get an SH Figuarts that allows you to do that option, so that's a big bonus. So I'm going to quickly swap out the head and body and just show you the second option. And this is what you get, a different head sculpt with the hair down and of course the kind of vest that he wore in the cave. And it's a very iconic moment when he's using the hammer and making that noise, of course, very memorable in the first movie. So this is really nice to have kind of like a 2-in-1 in a figure. And the figure also includes another head sculpt which is similar to the first one I showed you, but just without the sunglasses. And then we can move on to the armors now. The first one is obviously the Mark 1, very iconic because this looks very different to any of his armors later on. And you can see that it was very rusty at the time as he was just kind of building the armor in pretty rush time in the cave. And what I like about this figure in particular is it's very detailed, very movie accurate. You can see all the steel, the metal, the details, the dents. I just really like the way Tamashii Nations have built this. It's a really nice figure, and you kind of have to pick this one up alongside the Tony Stark to kind of have a really nice display, as this was also released under the Birth of Iron Man series around 2 years ago. So yeah, that's the Mark 1, which is pretty important as it's quite different to any of his armors later on. And then we can move on to the Mark 2, which of course is another one that featured in the first movie. A lot of people don't really remember this armor because it was only like a brief moment, but this is kind of like the first prototype of how all his armors look in the future movies. And this is the only one that has no red or gold on it. It's a full silver look, and it's pretty neat because it's quite rare now, so it's something that I only picked up recently, and maybe Tamashii Nations will re-release this later on because I know that a lot of people are missing it. It's nothing too exciting, but I think that having a full silver prototype is something that's pretty nice. And then we can move on to Mark 3, which is of course the first Iron Man armor in the MCU with the red and gold, basically the classic colors. So this is another very iconic figure to have in your collection because it's the first time we see it in action, kind of the red and gold. And this is a re-release, I believe. I got the second version, and they also released another version only recently in a different color wave. But to me, this one is a bit more movie accurate. I think the burgundy red looks more like the one we see in the film. They also had other color waves like a blue stealth version, but since that didn't really feature in the movie, I didn't see the need to pick that one up. So that's the Mark 3. And then we can move on to Mark 4. And this one is actually a very rare figure. It's probably the rarest Iron Man armor for the SH Figuarts, believe it or not. And one of the reasons is because this figure includes a lot of accessories. One of the main ones is the Tony Stark head sculpt. Right now I'm using it with the sunglasses. There is also another faceplate without it. Also includes a box of donuts, very memorable scene in Iron Man 2 when he meets up with Nick Fury and Black Widow in the cafe. And it's very similar to the Mark III in terms of the look, but you can see that there are some changes to the detail, like the shoulders and the arc reactor is slightly bigger. So this is a very expensive figure because it's quite rare now. So I don't really see Tomashinations re-releasing this anytime soon. And one of the main reasons why I feel that this is very popular is you don't really get a Tony Stark head sculpt in a Iron Man armor figure. It's not very often you do get one. They only did it in the Iron Man Mark 85 Final Battle Edition and the I Am Iron Man Edition. Apart from that, this is kind of like the only early armors you can get with the unmasked face. So yeah, that's the Mark 4. And then we move on to Mark 5, which featured in Iron Man 2 as well. Very memorable scene. I say this for almost all his armors, but it's a very iconic one again because it was part of the time when he went to the racing event and he had the briefcase and then the armor just kind of was put onto Tony Stark, which was a great scene. And this armor is very memorable because it's all red and silver. I actually really like this figure in particular because just the way it's built and it feels really solid. So I just wish that they did include a Tony Stark head sculpt and maybe like a briefcase like they did in some of the other brands. But yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite armors, the Mark 5, because it's quite different to his other ones. And then we can go on to Mark 6. And fun fact, the Mark 6 was in fact the first armor that Bandai Tomashinations made, the original version under the title Iron Man 2. They've released two versions of it since then. But the one I'm holding right now is the Avengers Assemble one, which they only released this year, 2021. And you can see it's a battle damage version, which you can actually swap out. And yeah, it's the updated version with newer colors, better build, better accessories. I would definitely recommend picking up the Avengers Assemble edition over the Iron Man 2 editions because this is an improvement. And even though it's under the title Avengers Assemble, you can still use this for the movie Iron Man 2. Put this figure next to the War Machine and you create that scene in that film. So yeah, this is the Mark 6. Another reminder is that they also released another colorway, which was the black and gold version. And again, that one isn't something that we see in the film, so I didn't pick that up. And then we have the Mark 7, which is very iconic again, because this was in the first Avengers Assemble, the first team-up movie. If you have the other members of the Avengers Assemble SH Figuarts, you can create that iconic New York battle scene. And of course, Tony Stark transferred to the Mark 7. Just like the Mark III, they also re-released this edition again in a new color wave. But in my opinion, again, this is the better and more accurate colors to the new version. So yeah, that's the Mark 7. And you can see that I've pretty much built up his Hall of Armors from the earlier movies. So we have Marks 1 to 7 in my display, which looks great. And now we can move on to the Christmas movie Iron Man 3, which happened after the Avengers Assemble. And I have a Tony Stark figure here. This is a really popular figure because at that time it was kind of like the only Tony Stark figure we had before they released the first Iron Man version. And I really like this because the face sculpt is really nice, and you obviously get the armors connected to his arms and legs. A very iconic scene in the base when he puts on the armor whilst dancing to the music. And this is what you can do with the figure. You can kind of swap out the arms and legs. At the moment I'm kind of using half and half just to show you the differences. And since this was one of the rare moments where you get a Tony Stark head sculpt, a lot of people like to use this on some of the other armors. So yeah, definitely recommend this. This is actually the version 2. The first one, they actually released one with the base, which I didn't get, so I just had to settle for the one without it. And then in the same movie, obviously, we have the Mark 42. This is one of my favorite Iron Man armors. and that is one of the reasons why I really enjoyed the movie Iron Man 3. I know a lot of people maybe preferred the first two movies, but in my opinion, I actually do like Iron Man 3, and I really like this armor because it kind of uses more gold than red, which is very different to his other previous armors or even later armors. And the only problem with this SH Figuarts is just the way they've sculpted and painted it isn't great. The gold, I just feel that it doesn't look metallic enough compared to, say, some of his other armors. And the red colors, a lot of people had problems with the paint. It started to rub off and it turned pink in some areas. And it's kind of happened to my figure as well. I'm not too sure the reason, even though I've kind of kept it in good temperature and away from the sunlight. So hopefully they will re-release this figure, although I doubt it. They need to give us an update on the Mark 42 because it's such a great armor, but just the way they built the figure wasn't the best. So that completes the Iron Man armors from his movies 1 to 3, plus the first Avengers Assemble. But if you want to see the later armors, stay tuned to my channel. Just hit the like and subscribe button, and I will show you the rest of the armors with the other characters in the later movies. In the meantime, you can check the links in the description below for my other videos, as I have done collections for the other characters as well. Thanks for watching and hope you have a nice Christmas.